So I don't normally start off doing magic, but let me just grab the 13 real quick and the 13 Pro because Apple just announced these earlier today at their big California streaming event. And yes, we got an Apple Watch and a new iPad and a new iPad mini. But for me, genuinely, it's always the iPhone that holds my attention the longest. So today, guys, we're gonna go over all the differences between the two lower end iPhone 13s and the two higher end iPhone 13 Pros. Let's go ahead and get started. So what are you waiting for? If you're excited for today's video, drop a like down below. It seriously helps me and the channel out. And click that subscribe button and turn on the bell for notifications so that you never miss a beat. Okay, so there's a lot of differences as I've alluded to, but let's actually start off with where all of these models are similar. First off, they all share the same fundamental design. It's incredibly similar to last year's iPhone 12 with the flat edges and the rounded corners of the screen, but this time, finally, can we all get a hallelujah in the chat? Maybe Kanye can throw one out for the smaller notch. For real though, this is something I've been waiting on forever, and while it is 20% smaller, what Apple doesn't tell you is that it's actually a bit taller. I guess it's been eating all the little Face ID parts, so if you do an overlay comparison, it's ever so slightly grown over the last notch, but it's a lot thinner, and I think when you see that on the screen, and even in these renders, it looks more significant than 20%. And squoshed or squished into the new notch is Face ID yet again, which Apple doesn't really say it's faster or different, but I assume there has to have been some improvement considering this is the first change we've gotten since 2017. This also means that there is no Touch ID yet again. Not here. Let me just hold my tongue on that one. But it's actually what you can't see on the front of the iPhone 13s that will be probably your favorite feature in the long haul, which is this new screen tech, this new physical glass that they've developed called Ceramic Shield. And this is why it's gonna be your favorite feature, because Apple actually put that on the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro series last year, and it has saved my life more times than I can count. In fact, I didn't believe them when they said it would be that much stronger. So for the first time since I've owned an iPhone ever, I went caseless last year. I'm not kidding. I only probably wore case 3 or 4 days out of the past year. Every other time, out of the case. And I dropped this probably 20 or 30 times. And it's my own fault. It's nobody else's fault but me. And the only result of all those drops, I don't even know if you can see it on camera, is this minuscule crack in the bottom with no impact of my viewing. And I gotta tell you, Ceramic Shield, it is like worth the money to upgrade by itself. It has saved me literally so many times. There's also really good dust resistance across the board. And just like last year, you're getting MagSafe on every single 13. So you can use it with your favorite cases that you buy. You can use it with the MagSafe battery pack, the MagSafe Duo, the MagSafe Puck. You got more MagSafe than you know what to do with. All the iPhone 13s also have 5G, so you're getting 5G on every single model. And the underlying camera technology is also the same between models. For example, you get night mode and deep fusion, which processes details really well on all the models. You're also getting smart HDR4 and cool photographic styles to make stylistic choices for the things you're shooting. And even though these sound like they're the same camera systems now, the actual hardware is a lot different this year, and more on that later. Okay, so now let's move on to the differences. And Apple's done something really interesting this year that they have not done before that they didn't do with the 12s, which is actually have feature parity between the two lower end iPhone 13s and the two higher end iPhone 13s. And this is a big deal because for the first time, the 13 mini and the 13 are the exact same phone. They have the exact same features. And then when you compare the two Pros, the 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max, those are the exact same phones. Those have the exact same features except for literally two things. The first is screen size and the second is battery life. The iPhone 13 mini has a 5.4-inch screen, where the iPhone 13 has a 6.1-inch screen. The iPhone 13 Pro has a 6.1-inch screen, and the iPhone 13 Pro Max has the daddy size 6.7-inch screen. I'm still growing. I'm still growing. The only other difference is battery life among the models. The smallest phone has only 17 hours of video playback. That's the 13 mini, and the iPhone 13 has 19 hours of video playback. But go up to the iPhone 13 Pro and you're jumping to 22 hours of video playback, 3 hours more than the standard 13, and 28 hours of battery video playback on the 13 Pro Max, which is 11 hours more on the Pro Max than the Mini. All right, so now that we've established that literally everything but screen size and battery life between the 13 and 13 Mini, the two low-end phones, and the 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max, the two high-end phones, is exactly the same, we can do a straight down the line comparison between the two. And for the first time in a long time, I think a lot of you guys might actually want to go for the Pros rather than the standard 13. So let's start off with the screens here. The standard iPhone 13 has the exact same screen as last year. It's got a 60 Hz refresh rate, but the 13 Pro has a 120 Hz ProMotion display. After years of waiting, Apple has finally brought that from the iPad Pro series, and what it means is twice as smooth scrolling, and it's also adaptive refresh, so it's not always going to be at 120 Hz, meaning that your battery life is not going to be impacted. I'll be real with you guys, it's actually pretty hard to show you the difference between 120 Hz and 60 Hz on screen, so if you have an iPhone in your hand, or you're watching this on a phone, just go to your home screen and swipe, and then imagine it's twice as smooth. Imagine that the pixels are refreshing twice as much as they do now. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It is the best feature on the iPad Pro, and I just can't believe it's finally here. But the Pros also get a second bonus for the display, which is the ability to get brighter. The Pro screens go up with ProMotion to 1000 nits, where the standard 13s just go to 800 nits. It's not like the 13s don't get bright, it's just that the 13 Pros get even brighter. All right, I just need a quick break from the spec talk. Let's go ahead and look at the colors between the 13 and the 13 Pro. Apple, they dropped the ball this year. I don't know. The colors are just not there. They're not it this year. The iPhone 13 comes in Starlight, which is essentially the new version of white, Midnight, which is essentially the new version of black, a better blue color than last year that's a little bit lighter. You've got pink, which essentially just looks like white, but somebody maybe coughed on it a couple times. It's not really pink. It's very, very light. And then you've got product red, which looks to be brighter than a Ferrari red. It's red, a deeper, darker red this year, which I think a lot of people are probably going to go for. Over on the Pros, you've got silver, you've got graphite, just like last year, and you've also got gold, which probably has the best wallpaper of them all, and then a new Sierra blue, not confused with Pacific blue from last year, Sierra blue. And don't get me wrong, the Sierra blue looks good. I was just hoping for something a bit different this year. I mean, it feels kind of like an S year. It feels kind of like an S year, specifically for the colors, for a lot of things, but specifically for the colors. So far, you're like, I'm not sold yet. All right, I'm gonna sell you right now. Did you know that there's actually two different A15 chips this year? So Apple has put the A15 chip, the same one in both phones, the same A15 chip. And yeah, while both the phones share the same 6-core CPU, you get an extra GPU core on the 13 Pro. So while the standard 13 only has 4 GPU cores, the Pro has 5. And we'll have to see how significant that is, but it's the first time, again, Apple has ever done this in iPhone history. That's kind of annoying that I can't even spend $800 and get the fastest possible chip in my phone from Apple. Kind of weird, right? Hey, just wait till we get to the camera changes, which we're jumping into right now, because this year, they are absolutely brutal. I'm not going to hold back. The Pros are significantly better. First off, the iPhone 13 has an ultra-wide and a wide-angle camera, and the iPhone 13 Pro has an ultra-wide, wide, and a telephoto lens. There's some pretty big differences for aperture, meaning how much light is allowed into the lens between the 13 and the 13 Pro. While the 13's camera is an f1.6, the 13 Pro gets f1.5 for the wide angle. And the ultra-wide is a pretty bad f2.4 on the iPhone 13 with a stunning f1.8 on the Pros. So the ultra-wide lens, which is my favorite thing to shoot on, is leaps and bounds ahead of the normal 13. It's really frustrating, I know. I wish they were the same. They are not for some reason. The Pro models have the ability to shoot in Apple ProRAW, which combines the best of Apple's automated smart HDR and processing technology pipeline combined with RAW photography, which is capturing the most amount of detail in an image. You can't do that on the 13, that's only on the 13 Pros. So, I mean, there's some pretty good photos you can take on this. It was on the 12 Pros last year. It's pretty nice. And if you want to take a portrait mode photo in night mode, you can also only do that on the Pros. You'll have to either just do portrait mode or just do night mode of a subject on the standard 13s. And then moving on to video, the Pros can shoot in Apple ProRes, which is like an industry standard format for video encoding. That's something only the Pros can do. It records, I think, 4 gigabytes a minute. So on the 128 gigabyte iPhone 13 Pro, you can only do 1080p, not even 4K. A weird little difference there. Luckily though, the front camera on both of these is f2.2, lets in a pretty good amount of light. It's 12 megapixels, and the only thing the Pros can do on the front is record, again, ProRes video on the front. So the front camera, for all intents and purposes, is exactly the same. Rounding out the cameras though, there's also a LiDAR sensor on the Pros. This helps with autofocus in low light. It also makes augmented reality actually work properly, and the Measure app super specific, so it's a pretty big deal if you use those things. If You don't need the LiDAR sensor. And the last major change I want to highlight in today's video is storage. And the iPhone 13 goes up to 512 gigabytes at its max capacity, where the iPhone 13 Pro can go double that to 1 terabyte. I don't even know if my MacBook has that much storage, but sure, if you want to put that in your iPhone, you can now finally, like we've been waiting for, you have the ability to configure it on iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro only. All right, that was a lot. I am completely brain fried, but I want to get to the most important part of this video now, my final thesis, which is which iPhone 13 should you actually buy? Let's start off with the iPhone 13 mini. For me, this phone is simply too small. I've tried to use a small screen, but 5.4 inches and a smaller body than even the iPhone 8 or the iPhone SE, it's just too tiny. That combined with the lowest battery life in the entire line, it's just not the phone for me. That being said, the iPhone 13 mini is the cheapest in the lineup, starting at $699, and boasts this wildly powerful processor inside, an incredible looking display quality-wise, and just is going to take incredible photos for a phone this tiny. Next up is the standard size iPhone 13, which I think is probably what most people are going to end up going for, but for me, it's not the phone that feels like the best value anymore. It used to have the same exact cameras as the Pros, but it doesn't this year. And the fact that the cameras are kind of falling short, the processor isn't as good as the Pros, the screen doesn't refresh at the same rate as the Pros, it's not going to look as good in comparison. There's just a lot of things for the standard 13. Basically what I'm saying is this: if you have $1,000, I think it's worth going up to the Pro this year. If you only have $700-800 and you just want a bigger phone than the mini, then yeah, the standard 13 is perfect. Just know that if you spend $200 more, I do think you're getting $200 of value. The 13 also has really solid battery life, but not the best. It's only the second best out of the 4 phones. So that's why this year, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I am recommending the $1,000 iPhone 13 Pro instead of the standard iPhone 13, and here's why. For $200 more, you're getting better cameras, better battery life, and a better screen. And I don't really know what else you have to say other than that sounds like $200 worth of good stuff for me. And it's big camera upgrades and big battery improvements and a massively upgraded screen at that. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has the biggest screen and the best battery life, and that's all you need to know. It has all the improvements of the smaller Pro. So I would say this: if you need the best battery life or you just want a bigger screen, get the Pro Max. If not, I think the normal Pro's the move this year. Listen, I have tried the Pro Max size before. I wanted to like it, but for me it was just too big. So if you know you like really big phones and you want the best battery life and money is not an object, get the Pro Max. If you want the best possible phone at the best possible value for what you're paying this year, I think it's the iPhone 13 Pro. That's my video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something new. Thank you for sticking around for this long one. I love you guys so much. Subscribe for more iPhone 13 content coming very, very soon. I've been Sam. Hope you're doing well. Catch you in the next one. Peace.